Bookcase and Coffee presents Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Buzzing About Romance podcast. And on this quick shot of romance, we are reviewing Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. And I am joined once again by Rachel, who you can find on Instagram as Read with Rach. Welcome back to the podcast, Rachel.
Glad to be back.
Okay, so do you want to read the synopsis from Goodreads?
Yeah. A sizzling, standalone, feel-good holiday romance from Tessa Bailey, New York Times bestselling author of It Happened One Summer. 2 weeks before Christmas and all through Manhattan, shop windows are decorated in red and green satin. I'm standing alone in front of the famous Vivant department store when a charming man named Aiden asks my opinion of the decor. It's a tragedy in tinsel, I say, unable to lie. He asks for a better idea with a twinkle in his eye. Did I know he owned the place? No, he put me on the spot. Now I'm working for that man, trying to ignore that he's hot. But as a down-on-her-luck girl with a difficult past, I know an opportunity when I see one, and I have to make it last. I'll put my heart and soul into dressing his holiday windows. I'll work without stopping, and when we lose the battle with temptation, I'll try and remember I'm just window shopping.
Okay, so this was released October 19th of 2021. So it's pretty new. And the tropes are holiday romance, grumpy sunshine, workplace romance. And there's a couple other ones that are mixed in. Like she is starting over. He is way sunshiny. And the put out percentage was 49%. But there's a really, really hot scene with Aiden in the shower at 32%. Just putting that out there for you, for your eyeballs to enjoy. So, thoughts. Stella is just starting out again. She had recently got out of jail after a 4-year jail sentence, and she's been out about a month. And so she's starting over in New York, and she's trying to figure out what to do with her life. And so she's walking past this travesty of a window with, what did she refer to the penguins? I don't even remember.
Oh my gosh, I forgot, but it was really funny.
It was like, honestly, I was 3 pages into this book and I was cackling, like, because it was so funny. And I was like, if this is what the rest of the book is going to be like, this is going to be amazing. Because I was laughing so hard.
I know, I was hooked from the beginning too. Like I was laughing so hard. I laughed throughout most of the book, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a lot of really humorous points, but they flowed naturally. Like it wasn't humor for humor's sake. Like it worked really well with the storyline. But so Aiden is getting Stella's opinion. She has no idea who he is. Like he's just asking her questions, what he thinks, like what she thinks. And then basically it's like, oh, you should, like, they don't have the window dressing person anymore. Like you should apply. And so she's like, okay. And then like, but she has been trying to leave this conversation that she's having with him for like 3 minutes, like over and over again, but he won't let her leave.
I loved that. Like she very much had on an air of like, don't talk to me. I don't want to be talked to.
Yeah.
And he either didn't get it or he didn't care. I think it was kind of a combination of both because he seemed like pretty aloof at the beginning. Like he's just so sunshiny and couldn't imagine why someone would not want to talk with him.
Yeah. Well, but it's also, I think, the fact like when we officially meet Aiden and like he is looking for Stella's like job application and he's like kicking himself because he didn't get her name, he didn't get her number, he got nothing from her because again, like she was done, like she wanted out of that conversation. But he talks about how they had such an instant connection, like he'll know who she is just by seeing her name. And I thought that was really profound because she felt similar things, but since she is so unsure about where her life is and where her life should be going and like what her past is going to do for her future, like she wants to ignore those feelings.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And so Tessa described this as like a Ted Lasso-esque romance.
Okay.
With So Ted Lasso is a super popular TV show on Apple TV.
Mm-hmm.
I actually hadn't watched it until I read this book, and you should watch it. It's really funny. Ted Lasso, the main character, is very much, I see where Tessa got the inspiration for Aiden. Because he's like so sunshiny that you're like, how can someone be this happy all the time?
Well,
even when something bad happens, they're like, they spin it and you're like, oh my gosh, how?
Yeah, that was the thing. Like he, like, even when he was having a bad moment or a bad day, or like that board meeting, like with which he basically said that he does those just because, like, but even there are moments in that meeting where like you could tell like he wanted to have a reaction, but like it's so ingrained in him to be like polite and nice and act a certain way that he doesn't let that side of him out. But it's kind of crazy because like when you hear the stories about his Aunt Edna, who raised him because his dad pawned him off on Edna and her husband, like, you know, like in the stories and any interaction like like she has a temper, like she has those emotions, she's not afraid to show those. But you see the fact that like he was dumped there, basically, that he feels he has to act a certain way for things to go the way that they're supposed to. Like if he is always nice, then he wouldn't get left again. And I just felt so bad for him in that moment, that like that his dad dropped him off there with her. But at the same time, like I loved it because Edna, like she showed him love and she showed him like what it is to be wanted at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. And like I thought Tessa did a great job, because I think a lot of times like sunshiny characters can come up like as naive almost.
Yeah.
And with Aiden, it would be easy to think he's just naive, but she told his story in a way that you knew he was making this conscious decision to be like super positive, rather than like being someone who didn't know that life could be bad.
Yeah, it
like,
was.
He knew it, but
it was almost his coping mechanism.
Right. He turned it around and decided to be positive because he knew it could be worse.
So let's talk about just Stella. So Stella is the grumpy in this. Like but her grumpy is not like she's just not sure. Like her grumpiness comes out in a place of insecurity, in the fact that she doesn't know what she can do now, because she's an ex-con, like officially an ex-con, and like who's gonna hire her? Why would somebody hire her? Like, and she made this conscious decision to do what she did, like before she got arrested, and like she's open about it, like once they get to that point. But at the same time, like she wonders like how is this going to affect her in the long run?
Yeah, I was not expecting her to be an ex-con. I don't know, but I really like that, because I think that usually with that kind of trope, it's the guy that's the ex-con.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I've ever read a book, maybe like a couple, where the female's the ex-con. So yeah. I liked that. And I liked that she wasn't completely jaded. She was a little jaded, as you would be. But like you said, it was really like unsure and insecurity how to go on with her life without her former best friend.
Well, and I think a lot of that insecurity comes in too, like, because when she first got out, she went home to her parents in Pennsylvania, and they basically were like, you gotta leave. So like she comes home after being in jail for years, and she comes to a place where you're supposed to be loved and cared for and like feel that embrace, and they're like, you gotta go. And in having that situation, she truly was alone. So, and that was the first time ever, like yes, she was in jail and yes, she was alone there, but it was a different situation. Like she had nobody, in her relationship with Nicole, who is the best friend, who is also in jail because of what they did. Like she recognizes as the book goes on, like how toxic she was for her.
Mhm.
And that's, she has so much growth in this book. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about this book is it's so funny and there's a ton of humorous points, but there's also those like serious moments and serious like situations in which Stella and even Aiden like deal with their hangups and the resolutions that they come to.
Yes, I agree. I was definitely expecting a rom-com. So the comedic moments were, not surprising, but I wasn't expecting as much depth necessarily. And that's just simply because I was expecting a rom-com. And I thought it went kind of seamlessly between the two. I was never like, what's this doing in this book?
Exactly.
Or like, what's going on here? Like, I thought it was really well done. And I appreciated the growth of both Stella and Aiden.
Well, and one thing I like too was like they allowed each other to grow, but they didn't do it like it wasn't Aiden's like forcing Stella's growth. It wasn't Aiden being around for Stella to grow. It was Stella being in that position, like because she becomes friends with a couple of the managers like in the store, and like she really connects with some of the people that work at this department store, and she sees the type of relationship and friendship that she should have. And I think that's the big part of it too is, I mean, Tessa Bailey is always, she's really good with those like side characters. They're never overpowering, but they really make important impacts on like the main hero or the main heroine's life. And I think that's the biggest thing is these little side managers and side characters. And even Aiden's assistant with him, they really allow them to see like where they're failing and where their thought process is not quite what it should be. And like, this is where you should head, but maybe you can go this way too. And that's all right.
Yeah, I agree. I liked that Stella's growth was for Stella and not for Aiden. He was instrumental in kind of like supporting her and her seeing like maybe what she wanted for the future. But she wasn't changing for him. The decisions she made were not for him. They were all for her. And I really liked that because it made it more believable.
It really did. And that's the biggest thing. Like he supported it. Like he didn't force it. He didn't say, you need to do this. Like he supported it. And she supports him in the fact where she's like, you don't have to be nice all the time. Like she's like, if that's how you are and that's what you need, then that's okay. But you don't have to be this person. Like you can let the bad out also. So let's switch gears a little bit. So Aiden, like we said, he's this super nice guy, always polite, always like peppy, upbeat, like wears his little bow ties, which I just adore. I think a bow tie is just, I like a good bow tie, but he has like fancy bow ties like during the Christmas season. And then he has like his standard plains when it's not Christmas. But he is one dirty talker.
I know. One of my favorite things, the whole, beta in the streets, alpha in the sheets. I love an unexpected dirty talker.
Oh, and he dirty talked really well. Well,
he did.
And he even talks about like how it's the one place like he can fully let go. And he like people he is, dated in the past, like he's had issues with that because they either really like that nice guy and then they can't handle like the extreme like alpha dirty talker he is in bed, or they really want that guy all the time and they don't like his nice side. But he felt with Stella like she rounded out the best of both sides. And I thought that was really nice too, that like he really could be his full 100% true self around her. And yes, like there was the up and downs because she's his boss. Yes, she's an ex-con. Like, what is his family going to think? So she had a lot of those inner turmoils. And his really only hang up was, what is Stella going to think about this kind of thing? Like, what are Stella's thoughts? Like, he didn't care what his family thought, because aside from Edna, like he dealt with his mother or his dad and his grandmother, like only when he had to. But that was one thing I liked too. Like, he wasn't worried about what people would say. He was just worried about how Stella would react. And the fact that like, he didn't want her to feel like he was taking advantage of the situation because he hired her.
Right. And I thought it was interesting that he truly didn't care what other people thought, because he comes across as a people pleaser.
He does.
And really, he people pleases because that's what makes it like easier for him to stay positive. It's not necessarily because he wants to make those other people happy. It's just easier. Right. So that's what he does. And when it came down to it, he was going to do it for what he wanted. And he no longer like tried to make them happy. And I really liked that. I
did too. But he did it in such a way that felt natural. Like, it wasn't like the shift of character. Like, it was just him, like, it was him taking charge in that moment, where he would have before, but he did it in a different way. Like, he wasn't this kind, like bubbly guy. Like, when it happened, like he let that alpha come out just a little bit in those moments. But he really, everything with Stella though, was kind of on her terms. Like, there is a moment where they get to a certain point and he pulls back, and then he recognizes like he hurt her, but at the same time, like, he's like, we're together are not ready for that step. And I thought that was something too, is he really thought about like where they should be and where Stella was feeling. And he wanted to see like truly where she was. But there's one scene in the book that I thought was adorable and wonderful. But and I don't want to like give away what they give each other, but they do a Christmas scavenger hunt in the store. And I thought the gifts that they gave each other were just perfect.
I completely agree. I love that entire scene.
And I like the fact too, where when she finds him, he's sitting there with cocoa and like marshmallows, and he's like been hanging out because he like knew exactly what he was going to get. And yes, like he had the grace of like knowing where everything is, but he didn't even have to like question what he was going to get her. Like, because they do the scavenger hunt as, if I would buy you a present, what would it be? And I just thought that whole like scene was really well thought out and adorable and just really touching, like with the way that Tessa Bailey wrote it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it was a fun and different scene too, which I think kind of added to it.
Well, and I do want to talk about the side characters a little bit. So we have his assistant, who is kind of like the grump to Aiden's sunshine, like, but he's very like on top of things. He's worked for him a long time. But there's a moment in the beginning of the book, like when he's accepting applications, where he talks about this file that he has, and I don't want to tell you what it's called, but like after he tells Aiden what it is, he has this moment and he's like, that's really bad. Like, why did I do that? And he's like, I'm sorry, which I thought was really funny, because like he didn't do it in a malicious way, but he recognizes, like when he says it out loud, like, I shouldn't have done this. Like, this is not who Aiden is. I mean, granted, it's his work computer and nobody else is like accessing that, but I just thought like, that was like really nice. But that was something too, like his assistant, who I cannot think of his name off the top of my head for some reason. Like, I'm blanking on names tonight, but he really had his back through like everything. Like, he knew when Aiden was like at that cusp of like chaos. And so like he could pull him back, which I thought was great, because he truly was like a really good friend. He wasn't just an assistant with him.
Yes, I loved his assistant. And there were a lot of funny scenes with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't a scene stealer, but in those scenes, he definitely added some like much needed content.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely did. And then Aunt Edna, like one of the thing like quirks that Aiden has is he's constantly talking about like Aunt Edna stories and all these Aunt Edna stories. But he, like Stella even tells him, she's like, you don't share enough with your employees, because he's the general manager of the store.
Mm-hmm.
Like his family owns it, and he's like the man in charge of everything. And actually, I think he owns most of the shares of the store. So technically he just owns it and everybody else is his peon. But he doesn't act like that. Like he truly cares about the store and the people that work for them. But Stella tells him, she's like, you need to tell these people some of those Edna stories. Like you need to humanize yourself for them, so they don't just see you as this really like peppy guy. Like they would love these stories.
Yeah. I love the Edna stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they were just so funny and ridiculous. And it's like, like how she's married and then like not, and she like was with this rodeo clown.
Yeah, you're like,
but he didn't last long.
Real.
Yeah, there was, and that's the thing. Like there were such serious moments, but there was enough blended in with everything else that it worked really, really well.
I totally agree.
Okay, so the question, did you like this book?
Yes, I love this book. I think it's definitely one of my favorite holiday romances I've read this year for sure. And yeah, I thought it was very good. How about you?
I did too. I really enjoyed this book. Like I actually have had it for a little bit because you and I had talked about it, and Becky and I were like, this would be a good one because we're doing a lot of holiday romances for the month of December. And I enjoy Tessa Bailey's writing. Like there are books that I love and books that I like, but they're just not as good for me. But I like her writing style. And this one, it's the perfect blend of funny and sexy and serious. And since this one is one of her own self-pubbed books, she pushed that steamy like over the top. Like her trad pub books, like she toes that line and she toes it so well. Like she almost dips over it. But it's almost a little much for a trad pub book. But this one, like she was free to like let the steam fly,
which I loved.
So who would typically like this book?
I think fans of Tessa Bailey in general for sure would like this one. You like holiday romances, steamy romances. If you're looking for a closed door or clean romance,
this is not for
not
you.
it. This is not it.
This is not it. No, because let me tell you, that shower scene, it was so hot. It was just him in his imagination. And honestly, like I had to read through it twice because I was like, when did she show up?
I know, right?
Because it was that well done. Like I went back and I was like, oh, it was just him thinking about it. But it was so like, she wrote it so perfectly that like I really thought like they were both there in that moment, but they weren't.
I know, I did the same thing. Oh, and people who like reverse Grumpy Sunshine or just Grumpy Sunshine in general, but
yeah, like if you like a rom-com, like this is a good book for you. You like a steamy holiday read, this is a book for you. You like a Grumpy Sunshine, this is definitely a book for you. Like it's not overly grumpy, but it's like grumpy like to the perfect degree. So would you recommend this book?
Yes, I definitely recommend this book.
Yeah, I would too. It's a really great holiday romance, but you could read it any time of the year. So now, since it is a holiday romance, this is the ultimate holiday test. Does this book pass the Die Hard Christmas test?
Yes, like it would not make sense if it was like not a Christmas book. Like Christmas is like the whole reason this book exists.
Yeah, I agree. Like the whole premise, like the window dressings and window shopping in New York is always a big thing, but they make a really big statement at Christmas time. Like they go over and above and beyond. And so like that whole premise of it and the ideas behind it, like if if it wasn't a Christmas book and she took that part out, then it wouldn't work as well. Like, I think if you totally rewrote it and had like a totally different storyline, then yeah, it would totally work. But the whole premise is like the Christmas like season windows. But
Exactly.
So definitely passes the Die Hard Christmas test, because we all know that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Although some people don't think so, but I digress. Okay, so do you have a book that you think we should review for a quick shot? If you do, send us an email at thebees@bookcaseandcoffee.com, and we might just read it and talk about it. But thank you so much for joining me on this quick shot of romance for this book that holiday people should read. Actually, anybody should read. All right. Thanks, everybody, and happy reading.
Find us on Instagram at buzzingaboutromance or on Twitter at buzzingromance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.